Backslide by Black K. Cat. Chapter 8. Adjustment. Naruto-kun, it's time to wake up! You have training today! Naruto groans and attempts to drag his blankets over his head, hoping to shut out the weak light already starting to fill the room in the soft but insistent voice above him. For half a second he can almost imagine it worked. But then a weight dips the mattress beside him, and a hand gently but firmly shakes his shoulder. Up, Naruto-kun, the voice urges, sounding amused, and Naruto groans again, but forces his eyes open. The blurry blob of red and tan above him wavers for an instant before resolving into his cousin's face, smiling down at him. Kurama-ni, he manages after a dazed second. Up, Kurama repeats, reaching out to tweak his nose with a soft huff of laughter. You have to meet your team in an hour. Go shower and get dressed and then come eat. I'll have breakfast ready by the time you're done. He stands with a grace that should be entirely illegal for this hour of the morning, prudently dragging the blanket with him and easily evading Naruto's groggy attempt to reclaim it. Before Naruto can make so much as a sound of protest, or point out that, judging by the pattern of the past 2 days, Kakashi-sensei is going to be at least 2 hours late, so he should be allowed to sleep in, Kurama is out the door, blanket still trailing from under his arm like a somewhat limp victory banner. Naruto flops back onto his pillows with a whining groan, cursing the fact that his cousin seems to be the epitome of a morning person. 20 minutes later, feeling slightly more awake and a tiny bit more alert, Naruto hauls himself up onto one of the kitchen chairs and blinks at the dishes that are deposited in front of him. What? He demands in shock. Kurama raises an amused eyebrow in his direction. Grilled salmon, miso soup with onion and tofu, pickles, freshly made rice, and a glass of non-sour milk. Something wrong with that, Naruto-kun? It's a perfectly lovely breakfast, made even nicer by the fact that Naruto didn't have to cook it himself. But, Kurama-ni, I usually just have a cup of ramen. Really, that's delicious and very satisfying, I'm sure. The redhead cuts in, taking a seat across from Naruto with his own breakfast. But regardless of taste, that's not a complete breakfast, Naruto-kun. Ramen is fine for lunch, since it has lots of calories to replace those lost in training and salt to make up for some of what you sweat out. But it isn't breakfast food. While you're living here, you'll eat full, balanced meals. But ramen! Naruto protests, because ramen is God, and there's no way he's going to be deprived of the chance. Naruto. Kurama looks up at him and smiles. And the expression somehow manages to imply, shut your mouth and eat, or the next meal served in this house will include your perfectly grilled flesh, while simultaneously remaining utterly kind and innocent. Eat your breakfast. Naruto closes his mouth with a snap, ignores the shudder of horror that races down his spine. It fights for a place in his stomach beside the curl of warmth at the thought that somebody cares about his nutrition and eats his breakfast. It's delicious, if still mildly terrifying. As they eat, Naruto takes the time to watch his cousin. Kurama looks bright and cheerful, and for the first time that Naruto's seen, he's wearing the standard Konoha Jonin uniform, though his shirt is sleeveless and leaves his tattooed arms bare. In the early morning sun, his hair is unnervingly close to the color of blood, but his face is peaceful, even with the pale scars that run across the tanned skin. Naruto traces them with his eyes, trying to be discreet about it. One runs from the right side of his jaw all the way up to his hairline, and another slants down from the middle of his left cheek across the skin of his throat and disappears behind his hair. A faint shimmer of violet light catches his eye as Kurama reaches for the tamari, and Naruto blinks, dropping his gaze to one of the tattoos around the man's wrist. It's glowing, if only faintly, and he can't help but stare. Ah, Kurama says, apparently noticing the direction of his gaze. He pulls his hand back and turns his arm over, studying the mark, and then looks up at Naruto with a startlingly bright smile. Have you ever seen seals before, Naruto-kun? Almost automatically, Naruto's hand goes to his stomach, pressing over the seal there, and then he freezes. What? He squeaks. Kurama just keeps smiling as though he didn't notice the hesitation. Seals, he repeats, and lays both palms flat on the table so Naruto can see the intricate, twisting designs that are inked into his skin. There are no two the same, though some are faintly similar, and Naruto leans forward to study them, eyes narrowed in confusion. Like, for keeping stuff in? Naruto asks, racking his brain to remember if Iruka-sensei said anything about the stuff. Kinda like sealing scrolls? Kurama nods, and his expression shifts into something fond as he runs his fingers up his arm, tracing the outlines of one of the marks. Sealing scrolls are the absolute most basic form, he acknowledges. Most shinobi can make them, since it's an incredibly simple design. Sealing mostly deals with containing and either trapping or redirecting a force, and from there people are only limited by their imagination and the size they want their seal to be. Wrinkling his nose, Naruto blurts out, "But that's not cool at all! You can't do anything just keeping stuff in!" Half a heartbeat too late, he realizes that might have sounded insulting and winces, hoping it won't get him tossed out on his ear. But rather than taking offense, Kurama just laughs. You'd think that at first glance, he agrees, and that's why there aren't many seal masters left, outside of those who escaped the fall of Uzumaki. He leans forward, twisting his arm to show Naruto a set of curving designs that run from the bend of his elbow to his wrist. As an example, do you know what elemental affinities are? Iruka-sensei definitely talked about them. There was even a test on it. But the main thing Naruto remembers about that day is how the majority of the girls screamed when they found his rubber spiders in their desks. He quickly shakes his head. Thankfully, Kurama still simply looks amused. Elemental affinities show what kind of jutsus a shinobi will be best at using. Here in Fire Country, most shinobi have a fire affinity, but it's not uncommon for other kinds to pop up as well. The Uchiha had a handful of lightning affinities, the Hyuga often had water affinities, and a few of the lesser shinobi clans, like the Kamizuki, are earth affinities. A shinobi can learn to be good with an element that isn't their affinity, but it's far more difficult, and they'll always be better at their natural element. Naruto opens his mouth to ask the obvious question, but before he can, Kurama cuts him off with a faintly raised brow, indicating the marks on his arm again. I have a wind affinity, but using seals, I could take my chakra, contain it, and run it through a series of elemental conversion matrix. He breaks off with a chuckle, seeing the utterly blank look on Naruto's face. The seals contain the chakra that I feed them, he clarified, not sounding put out about having to, the way a lot of academy teachers did, before Naruto just stopped bothering to ask. They changed my chakra's elemental affinity, and when I release the chakra, I can use it as though I have a completely different affinity. That's the kind of thing seals could do. Like I said, it's all up to your imagination. If you can figure out a way to add the correct seals, simply containing chakra can become your greatest weapon. Naruto stares at the pretty lines that suddenly seem infinitely more significant, open-mouthed and uncaring, because... Kurama-ni? He breathes. You can do any jutsu? A soft snort, and then a calloused hand ruffles his hair. Of course, that's what you take away from that, brat, Kurama says, though there's no annoyance in his tone, only warm humor. Yes, Naruto. With enough advanced warning and a moment to prepare the chakra, I can do all 5 main types of jutsus. Not indefinitely, though, and not too many times in a row, or it will burn the seals out. They're fairly delicate. Even so, that's absolutely awesome. Naruto stares up at his cousin, visions of knocking Sasuke Deme on his butt with a burst of fire and then drenching him with a tsunami dancing through his head. Teach me! He cries, bouncing in his chair. I want to learn that too, Kurama-ni! Kurama regards him for a moment, one brow still lifted, and then shakes his head with a chuckle. We'll see, he answers, standing up and gathering both sets of empty dishes. If you want a set of seals like mine, though, you're going to have to learn all of the theory behind them and do well in the tuning exams before I even think about letting you get them put on you in ink. He pauses, placing the dishes in the sink, and casts a considering eye over Naruto's all but vibrating form. Then he smiles again, kind and sweet, and it somehow manages to make Naruto feel warm all the way to the tips of his toes. But I'll talk to your Jonin sensei and see if I could start teaching you the basics of sealing, at least. I think you've got enough imagination and unpredictability to be good at it. No one has ever said that they thought Naruto would be good at something. Naruto goes still in his seat, frozen by those unexpected words and the weird, happy, twisting feeling in his chest, like the kind he gets when Sakura smiles at him and Sasuke isn't a complete deme and Iruka-sensei treats him to ramen all in the same day. He swallows hard, uncertain in the face of this unfamiliar feeling, and starts a little when that warm hand drops to rest in his hair again. "Hey," Kurama says gently, meeting his eyes with yet another smile. And no one has ever smiled this much at Naruto, not even Hokage Jiji, who is all too often busy or exasperated or both. "Hey," the redhead repeats, ruffling his hair. "Come on, let's get going. You don't want to be late meeting your team." Thought of his new squad mates jerks Naruto out of his daze, and he pulls a face. But Kakashi-sensei isn't going to be there for hours. Kurama laughs, turning away to pull a tall bento box out of the fridge. But Kakashi has been an elite jonin long enough that he can get away with that kind of thing, he counters. Plebeians like you and I have to show up on time until we're important enough that our value outweighs our quirkiness. Plebeians? Naruto echoes, confused again. And jeez, why can't adults just talk normally? Common folk, Kurama clarifies, picking up a sheathed sword from where it was resting in the corner. He slings it across his back and heads for the door. "Come on, Naruto-kun, I'll walk you there. Might as well ask if Kakashi will let me teach you ceilings right away, rather than waiting until you're bogged down with D ranks." The promise of that is enough to get Naruto up and moving, hopping to put his sandals on as Kurama heads out the door. He rushes after his cousin, almost colliding with the man when Kurama stops in front of the hallway's largest window. "Kuramani?" Naruto asks curiously. Kurama looks at him, and there's a spark of a very familiar mischief in his eyes. Naruto's seen it in the mirror. "You haven't learned tree walking or how to use the rooftop yet," Kurama says, then drops into a crouch in front of Naruto. "Hop on, this way is faster." Remembering yesterday's jaunt over the roofs and the nearly weightless leap up to the Hokage's window, Naruto doesn't hesitate. With a grin, he leaps onto his cousin's back, wraps his arms and legs around him like a monkey, and clings as Kurama takes a chakra-assisted bound out the window across the gap between buildings and then breaks into a run. Way too much red hair hits Naruto square in the face, and someday he'll ask why his cousin has more hair than even Ino, but it's worth it just for the sheer speed Kurama can move at. If this is what being a jonin is like, Naruto can't wait until he becomes one. "Which training ground?" Kurama asks as he bounds across the main street, not even vaguely winded. Naruto shakes his head. "Kakashi said to meet on the bridge like we did for our test." "I remember that bridge, I think," Kurama hums, and Naruto belatedly remembers that the man is new to Konoha. Before he can offer directions, though, Kurama changes his heading and hops from a rooftop onto the thick branch of a tree, then drops down to the quiet side street. He crouches down again. "Come on, it's not too far from here, and walking will help loosen up your muscles for stretching." With a pout, because that's got to be one of the most awesome ways to travel. Naruto detaches himself and slides off, only to startle a little when Kurama wraps an arm around his shoulders and tugs him into a quick half-hug as he stands. The jonin doesn't say anything, acts like it's perfectly natural as he steps away, but Naruto is floored. Maybe other kids get regular hugs, but apart from a few courtesy of Iruka and the occasional fun pat from Hokage Jiji, and of course Sakura's love taps, nobody touches him. It's not even so much that people avoid it as he just doesn't have anyone to give him frequent hugs. But but now he does. Come on, Naruto-kun, Kurama calls, casting a smile back over his shoulder, and Naruto's 12 years old and a genin. He should have outgrown this kind of urge by now. But nevertheless, he runs to catch up and cautiously slips his hand into Kurama's free one. Kurama glances down and chuckles, curls his fingers around Naruto's in turn, and acts like that's completely natural as well. It's weird in a way that's so overwhelmingly good. Naruto can hardly breathe because of it. He's allowed to do this. I hope you like onigiri and vegetable buns, Kurama says casually, lifting the bento box he's carrying. I thought it might be nice for you to have some food for when Kakashi gives you a break. There's enough to share too. He offers Naruto a secret conspiratorial smile. I always found that there's no better way to build teamwork than sharing a meal with your starving teammates. Naruto beams back, thinking of how Sakura will react at being offered the miracle of his cousin's really, really good cooking. Then he remembers her excuse the last few times he asked her out for ramen and wilts. But Sakura-chan is on a diet. She won't eat any. I think you're underestimating the effects of the training Kakashi is going to put you through, Kurama says thoughtfully, and that devious glint in his eyes is definitely not comforting at all. Naruto is more than able to recognize the kindred banking spirit, and the mere fact that Kurama managed to dodge all of his traps before, many of which other jonin have fallen to, is a clue that despite his bright and innocent smile, Kurama is just as much of a trickster as Naruto himself. It's probably genetic, and the idea of having genetics in common with someone else is a thrill in and of itself. Even if she doesn't eat any, offer some to your other teammate, Kurama suggests. Sakura isn't the only one on your squad, after all. But Sasuke is a demi! Naruto protests, offended by the very thought. He's a complete and total... A warm laugh cuts him off. Maybe, Kurama allows. But I think you're more than capable of holding your own, Naruto, so you don't need to prove anything. He tilts his head, considering, and then offers Naruto a tricky grin. How would you like to freak him out completely? Always up for anything prank-related, especially when Sasuke Tame is on the receiving end. Naruto cries, definitely believe it! Try this then. Whenever he insults you, compliment him. Offer to share your food and smile at him. Don't let him beat you, but show him just what you can do and then don't boast about it. I think that will blow his mind if you can keep it up for a few days. Naruto chews that over for a minute. As much as he'd like to immediately shoot down any idea that calls for acting nice towards the Deme, the concept has promise. Sasuke Tame has become so used to Naruto rightfully proclaiming his awesomeness and how he's going to beat him that switching it up will throw him off track completely. I'll do it, he declares firmly. Just wait and see. Sasuke Tame's not gonna know what hit him. I bet he won't. Kurama demurs, an echo of that fox grin still hovering around the corners of his mouth. Naruto debates asking who it's directed at, but quickly decides that he'd really rather not know. Sakura perches on the railing of the bridge, the first to arrive. She's nervous, can't stop twisting her fingers in the hem of her dress, even as the thrill of passing Kakashi-sensei's test and actually becoming a genin makes her feel bubbly and about 20 pounds too light. She's always been smart. Has stayed the top kunoichi in her year since almost the very beginning, even coming from a civilian family and being yearmates with the heirs to the biggest clans. But it's only just now really sinking in. She's a genin, an actual shinobi instead of an academy hopeful, and the next few years are going to change everything. As far as teams go, maybe she didn't land on the best one. Judging by past generations, that's probably the Inoshika Cho team for sheer solid dependability and all-around effectiveness. But it could be a lot worse. Sasuke's a genius, and Naruto at least has those insane amounts of shadow clones going for him. And Hatake Kakashi is supposed to be one of the best jonin in the village, even if he's never passed a team before. Then, of course, is the fact that Hatake Kakashi has never passed a team before, but they passed. They managed it, as weird and mismatched a trio as they are. That's got to count for something, certainly. The sound of voices draw her out of her thoughts, and she looks up, hoping, but not expecting, that it will be Sasuke. Half a moment later, she realizes the problem with that, because Sasuke doesn't exactly talk to people, and deflates just as the speakers round the bend of the road. Then she takes a second look at them and blinks in surprise. The very first thing to catch her attention is red. Deep, brilliant red hair like the garnets her mother likes to wear on special occasions. Darker than rubies, but no less vivid. At first, she thinks the approaching adult is a woman, but that frame is too broad to be feminine, built on different lines. It's a man with long hair wearing a shinobi uniform, a jonin vest, and a Konoha hitayate in the same style as hers. And next to him, clinging to his hand and chattering away, is a familiar blonde. The jonin doesn't seem to mind, though, because he's smiling gently, and as they approach, she can see that his blue eyes are warm. He's not even ignoring Naruto. He's responding and paying attention. Not even Iruka-sensei, who treats Naruto like a little brother, catches every single word the boy says. "Sakura-chan!" Naruto cries, finally noticing her, and he detaches himself from the man to bound over to her. "Sakura-chan, come meet Kurama-ni. He's a jonin, and he used to be a bounty hunter, and he's really strong." Of course, strength would be the first thing Naruto focused on. Still, Sakura knows enough to identify the marks on the jonin's arms as seals, and he's carrying a katana slung across his back with an ease that says it's a familiar weight. A little nervously, she tucks a strand of hair behind her ear and smiles up at the stranger. "Hello, I'm Haruna Sakura. I hope Naruto wasn't bothering you." The man's eyes crinkle as he turns that warm smile on her. "Not at all, Sakura-chan. I'm Uzumaki Kurama. It's nice to finally meet you. Naruto told me quite a bit about you." Sakura blinks, trying to remember if she'd ever heard of or met anyone else with the name Uzumaki. But she hasn't. In fact, up until now, she was dead certain that Naruto was an orphan. But between the way Naruto is clinging to the man, the honorific Naruto used, and the name, "Kurama-ni is my cousin," Naruto adds. Grizz grin, wide enough to split his face. "But he didn't know about me, and I didn't know about him, so he never came to get me before. But we're living together now. He's got an apartment in the shinobi area with a balcony, and there are seals everywhere, and Kurama-ni says he's going to teach me how to make them too." "Breathe, Naruto-kun," Kurama says with a tolerant, amused smile. He ruffles Naruto's hair and then drops down to sit cross-legged on the ground, setting the bento he's carrying off to one side and resting his hands on his knees. A quick check of the sun's position has him stretching languidly and leaning back against the rail, then peering up at Sakura with humor in his eyes. "I assume your sensei won't be here for a while. Do you mind if I wait with you two?" Even as Naruto voices his enthusiastic support of the idea, Sakura shakes her head, trying not to stare at the jonin. He's handsome, though definitely not as handsome as Sasuke, and he's scarred. She remembers Naruto blurting something about bounty hunting and has to fight a shiver. The thought of missing-nin scares her, and she hopes that when she has to face her first rogue ninja, it's a long while into her future. "I've heard Naruto-kun's story already," Kurama says, making her look at him squarely. His eyes are very blue, darker than Naruto's, but just as sincere and friendly. He favors her with a slightly crooked smile and asks, "Why did you choose to be a ninja, Sakura-chan?" "Because Sasuke can..." She starts automatically, and then stops, blinking. That's not right. That's not right at all. Maybe Sasuke is a factor now, but she didn't actually meet him until after she started the academy. She just hadn't thought back to the real reason in a very long time. So long, but she could still remember it. She remembers it with perfect clarity the second she pauses to think about it, and that's a little surprising. For so long, her head's been filled with nothing but Sasuke, and while as his future wife and soulmate, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, she's somehow deeply glad that she hasn't forgotten her original reason. because there was a kunoichi who lived next to us when I was little, she says slowly, and it takes no effort at all to remember the woman, tall and strong and always standing very straight. She used to babysit me sometimes when both of my parents were busy and she didn't have missions. But she died protecting a family traveling across the border. The man who told me said that she stepped in front of a sword meant for a girl my age, and that it was only because of Kasumi-san fighting until she bled out that the whole family managed to get away safely. Sakura hasn't thought about Kasumi-san in years because, really, it's a little terrifying to imagine such a situation. But at the same time, the thought of the brave, strong woman Sakura knew, giving absolutely everything she had to save the lives of those depending on her, it makes Sakura's heart feel hot and heavy at the same time, makes her breath catch in her chest and something fierce burn in her throat, because she wants to be the kind of person who can do that. She wants to be that brave and strong and selfless, and up until this moment, she'd forgotten that. Sasuke is still amazing and cool and so handsome and brilliant, but he's not why Sakura wants to be a ninja, a kunoichi. Kasumi-san is. The ability to be so completely devoted and fearless is. When she raises her head, feeling oddly shaky and unbalanced, Kurama is still watching her, blue eyes somewhere between proud and warm and sad. All at once. That's a good reason, he says. Sakura smiles at him, helpless to do anything else, and nods firmly. I think so too, she answers. And somehow it's no surprise at all that her voice is entirely steady.